All right, so welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Tonight, we're heading down to Sao Paulo, and let me tell you, the story we're going to be looking at tonight, well, it's one of those that really makes you wonder about, coincidence and things like that.
Well, what really strikes me about this one is how it blends the mundane with the extraordinary.
Oh, yeah.
You've got Henrique, just an average guy heading home from work, when he's suddenly caught in a situation that just seems to defy explanation.
Yeah, exactly. It's late, Henrique's at a bus stop, and the sources describe it as pretty typical. Flickering streetlights, quiet streets.
Right.
But there's something else going on, too,
Yeah.
An unexplainable feeling that kind of washes over him.
Oh, wow.
Henrique describes this wave of calm, almost like a trance, and then these shimmering lights. It's all a bit surreal.
Yeah, it is, and the sensory details, the lights, the feeling of warmth, even this strange fragrance he talks about. That's what I find so fascinating. Think about it. How often do we really focus on our senses? But under extreme stress, like in a life or death scenario, studies have shown our brains can actually go into a sort of hyper-awareness, making our senses seem almost superhuman.
So you're saying that that fight or flight response could be amplifying what he's seeing and feeling.
It's certainly possible. Our brains are wired to protect us, and sometimes that means heightening our perception,
Interesting.
even if it creates experiences that seem a little out of the ordinary.
Okay, so we've got these heightened senses, a feeling of calm in a stressful situation, and then there's the touch.
Oh, yeah.
Out of nowhere, Henrique feels this touch on his shoulder, and it, compels him to move.
Wow.
I'll admit, if I was standing at a dark bus stop alone and I felt a touch, I'd probably sprint away.
I think we can all relate to that instinct to move away from danger.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it was fear or adrenaline or something else pushing him to move, it undeniably ends up saving Henrique's life.
Because seconds later, a truck loses control and crashes right into that bus stop, totally demolishes it.
Oh my goodness.
And you have to wonder, what if he hadn't moved?
Yeah, it's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
This raises some interesting questions about cause and effect, too. If Henrique hadn't moved, would the truck driver have still suffered that fatal heart attack? Did Henrique's actions change the course of events,
That adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Mm.
And to make things even more intriguing, the security footage of the accident is, well, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Right before Henrique moves, you can see this luminous figure next to him, appearing to touch his shoulder.
The footage is definitely strange. It's grainy and difficult to decipher, but there's definitely something there.
Right.
Now, some people might just jump to conclusions, calling it a guardian angel or a spirit or something.
Right.
But, before we go down that road, we need to consider other possibilities.
Of course, like a reflection, a trick of the light, or even a technical glitch in the camera itself.
Exactly. We have to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism. Jumping to paranormal conclusions without considering more grounded explanations wouldn't be a very deep dive, would it?
It definitely wouldn't. Now, after the accident, the officer investigating, Sergeant Silva, shows Henrique the footage, and here's where it gets really interesting. Silva mentions this isn't the first time something like this has happened at that particular bus stop.
Now, that's where the psychological aspect of the story really kicks in, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
The idea of a specific location having a history of strange events
Right.
that's bound to impact people's perceptions. Maybe even create a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts.
Like if you expect something strange to happen in a certain place, you're more likely to notice or even misinterpret things that fit that expectation.
Exactly. Think about psychogeography. It explores how our surroundings affect our feelings and behavior. The bus stop, because of this event and the stories surrounding it, might take on a different meaning for people, right? They might approach it with a sense of unease or even fear.
And it seems like the story doesn't end there. It spreads through the community, and others come forward with similar experiences at the bus stop. Unexplained lights, a sense of being protected. Some even claim to hear the sound of bells. It's almost like this ripple effect of the unexplained.
This speaks to a very human need to find meaning and connection, especially in the face of something we can't fully grasp.
So instead of just an accident, this becomes a story of survival, maybe even a testament to something bigger. It makes you think about how easily these local legends can be born.
Yeah, it's fascinating how quickly a place can transform in our minds. One event, a story, and suddenly a regular bus stop becomes something more.
Right, almost a landmark for the unexplained.
Yeah, exactly. But let's step back for a second and play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Is it possible this is all just a series of coincidences?
Hmm.
A lucky escape for Henrique, a tragic accident for the driver,
Right.
and a whole lot of people connecting dots that aren't really there.
So, are we stuck choosing between blind faith in the supernatural
Right.
and just dismissing everything as coincidence?
Yeah,
There's got to be a middle ground here.
absolutely. I think healthy skepticism is key. We should always question, examine the evidence, and explore different perspectives before jumping to any conclusions.
Right.
What we consider supernatural today might have a perfectly rational explanation tomorrow.
Like those old stories about lightning being the wrath of gods before,
Right.
we understood electricity.
Right.
Makes you wonder what future generations will think of our explanations for things.
Exactly. The history of science is full of examples like that. But even with all our scientific advancements, there will always be mysteries that we haven't figured out yet.
Right.
The key is to stay open to the possibility of the unknown without abandoning critical thinking.
A balance of wonder and reason.
Yeah.
Speaking of wonder, I keep thinking about those sensory details Henrique describes. The golden lights, the feeling of warmth, that strange, almost heavenly fragrance. Is it possible he, embellished his story for dramatic effect?
It's possible, sure, but we also have to consider the power of sensory experiences, especially when tied to strong emotions.
Right.
Studies show that during moments of extreme stress or trauma, our senses can actually become incredibly sharp, even distorted. We might notice details we wouldn't normally, and those memories can be incredibly vivid.
So maybe the shimmering lights were just the street lights, but they appeared different to him because of his heightened state and the warmth, maybe just a physical response to the adrenaline.
Exactly. Our brains are capable of extraordinary things,
Right.
and sometimes the line between perception and reality gets blurred, especially in those high-stress moments.
But what about that fragrance, though? He described it as otherworldly, not like anything he'd ever smelled before. It's not something you can just explain away as easily, is it?
That's the detail that really stands out to me as well. Smell is incredibly powerful. It's directly linked to the emotional center of our brain, and certain scents can trigger intense memories and feelings.
Right.
But to describe a smell as not of this world,
Right.
that suggests an experience that goes beyond the ordinary.
It's like those stories about people smelling roses when they sense the presence of a loved one who has passed away,
Those kinds of anecdotal accounts are fascinating, aren't they? While they haven't been scientifically proven, they do point to a deep connection between our senses and the way we experience the world, even the parts we might consider spiritual or beyond explanation.
It makes you wonder if there are forces out there that we don't understand. Could they be communicating with us through our senses, leaving little clues, hints of their presence?
That's a question that has puzzled philosophers and theologians for centuries.
Right.
Maybe the answer isn't about finding definitive proof, but more about acknowledging that there are things we may never fully grasp.
Embracing the mystery rather than trying to explain it away.
Precisely.
Okay.
And in Henrique's case, whether it was a guardian angel, a heightened sense of intuition, or just plain luck, the fact remains. He survived a situation that could have easily been fatal.
Right.
And that, in itself, is remarkable.
It certainly is. And his story, regardless of how you interpret it, makes you think twice about those moments where we feel like something more than chance is at play. It's interesting. We spend so much of our lives focused on the concrete, the things we can see and touch and measure. But then a story like Henry's comes along, and it reminds us that there might be a whole other dimension out there, just beyond our usual perception.
It really challenges our assumptions about reality, doesn't it? Forces us to look at our own experiences, those moments that don't fit neatly into our understanding of the world, and ask, what if there's more going on than we realize?
Exactly. We've all had those moments, right? A gut feeling that leads us to make a different choice.
Yeah.
Or a sense of being watched when we're alone, a dream that feels incredibly real. Do we brush it off as coincidence? Or do we entertain the possibility that it means something more?
That's the heart of the matter, isn't it? It's a choice each of us has to make. Embrace the mystery, search for answers, or simply acknowledge that there might be things we'll never fully understand.
So where does this leave us? How should we think about stories like Henrique's? Does it offer comfort? Or does it make us more wary of the world around us?
I think it can do both. It can be a reminder that even in the most ordinary moments, the extraordinary might be lurking just around the corner. It might inspire us to trust our intuition, those gut feelings that we often ignore.
Right.
But it can also highlight how fragile life is, how quickly things can change in an instant.
That sense of the unexpected, that anything can happen. It's both unsettling and exciting at the same time.
It is. And maybe that's the real takeaway from all of this. To appreciate the preciousness of life, the unpredictable twists and turns that shape our journeys, and to be open to the possibility that there's more to this existence than we can ever truly know.
To embrace the mystery, even if we never fully solve it.
Exactly. Perhaps Henrique's story is an invitation to look beyond the surface, to question our assumptions, and to find a sense of wonder in the everyday.
Well, we've certainly done a deep dive on this one. We've explored the details, analyzed the possibilities, and grappled with some pretty big questions. But now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced something that made you question the nature of reality?
Oh, yeah.
A strange coincidence, a premonition that came true, a feeling of an unseen presence. Share your stories in the comments. Who knows, maybe your experience will be our next deep dive. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep your eyes open for the extraordinary in the ordinary.